Welcome to Melt. I'm Suresh Venkat. Earlier this month, research company Kantar and media agency GroupM's Dialogue Factory unveiled the third edition of the Rural Barometer Report that explores consumer behavior and purchase patterns across rural India. The big headline is the finding that rural India is on the brink of an e-commerce revolution, though concerns about health, nutrition and job security remain paramount. To know more, I was in conversation with Dalveer Singh, Head of Experiential Marketing APAC Dialogue Factory, and Puneet Avasthi, Senior Director, Specialist Businesses Insights Division at Kantar. What do marketers need to know from the report? Let's find out as we get ready to melt with Dalveer Singh and Puneet Avasthi. Welcome Dalveer, welcome Puneet. Let's dive straight in with the first question to Puneet. Before we dive into the specifics of the Rural Barometer Report, give us an overview of the methodology used for this report.
So the Rural Barometer was something that we conceptualized towards the towards the beginning of the first wave of the COVID pandemic, and we've done 3 waves now. We cover the entire country. We cover 18 states. The large states of the country are covered, where we do a sample size of around 3,700 individuals. The interviews are conducted telephonically, so these are all people who own a mobile number. And we are representing all socio-cultural regions of the different states to ensure that the diversity within a state is adequately covered as such.
Dalveer, over to you. Give us a quick overview of the top 3 findings of the report. What's the headline?
So, Venkat, the first headline is data is the new beta for rural audiences. So, digital and data is the new beta for rural audiences. And why we say so is today there are more active internet users in rural, close to about 351 million, than in urban markets. So, that's the first thing. The second thing is the more dominant use of internet was always for entertainment and for social media, which is now moving on to more of vocational information. Now, what is this doing to the farmers is farmers are using these apps to help them in controlling or monitoring their crops. That's one of the trends that we've seen, and that's very strong in markets like Karnataka, Punjab, Haryana, Gujarat. So that adoption is big there. So that's the first one. The second one is the low unit packs, which used to be the darling of rural markets, is now moving, or we see a buying shift there to large unit packs, and more so in 2 categories, which is health and hygiene category. So overall, if you see the net score of this, and the net score is basically percentage of people buying larger packs minus percentage of people buying lower packs, is what the net score is. And this for a category like surface cleaners is close to about 11%. For soaps, it's about 3%. For hand wash is about 4%. So that's the another thing which is happening. Then is rebalancing of the FMCG spends. The food categories such as biscuits, chocolates, snacking, etc., plus personal care, plus beauty categories are bouncing back, and we see a momentum there. Then is the intent to buy big ticket. So again, that's coming in there in form of smartphones, 2-wheelers, in terms of doing construction work, which was not there for the last couple of months. And this is likely to grow over the next 6 months. So the purchase pattern, and these are the trends there. And the third one, which is again a big one, is with the COVID worries now declining, job security has emerged as the new concern. And this is more so in the youth in the age group of 18 to 24 years. And coming from lower social classes, which is NCCS, CDE, and more in Hindi-speaking states like Hindi-speaking states plus Gujarat plus Kerala and Tamil Nadu. So those are the 3 big headlines that we are seeing out of our third wave of this report.
Dalveer, based on these findings, what should marketers be doing differently?
I think the first, and I'll say the sandesh for the marketers is this whole piece of reaching the unreached, unreachable, media dark is today very less relevant. Yeah, because you got mobile beyond television. Today you got mobile that literally reaches every household. Second thing is rural is more resilient and insulated than the urban markets. And why I say so is this is because of 2G factor. And 2G here is not telecom, but first G is the act of God. And we've seen 3 great monsoons and bumper crops. And even the 4th one, which is now coming, is going to be a normal monsoon. So that's the great thing, which is the act of God. The second G is the act of government. And that's where the government schemes are now showing impact. And government has done a lot during the COVID times, making sure that these schemes reach the poorest of the poor. And that's helping these markets and the economy to be resilient, and it's growing. So therefore, I'll say stay invested and stay ahead. Yeah. And to stay ahead, you have to use something. I use an acronym called FEW. Be the first one and the fastest one. That's for the F. For E, it is be effective and efficient. And for the W, it's about win-win for everybody. So it's not only just the consumer, but everybody in the ecosystem. So that would be my sandesh to the marketers, for the rural marketers.
Puneet, as a follow-on question, a recent World Bank report has reported that extreme poverty in India has actually declined in the last 2 years. Do your findings mirror this World Bank report?
So, what we are finding is that surpluses in rural India have improved. And that is largely on account of the fact that the basic consumption spending has been taken care of by the kind of schemes that the government has been running in terms of giving people basic rations as such. So, given that their expenses have actually, in a sense, gotten controlled, and therefore surpluses in rural India have improved, which is leading to the overall buoyancy that one is seeing in the market as such in terms of consumer spending, rural India being a lot more optimistic as such. So all those factors are leading to better surpluses. It isn't that the incomes have gone up significantly. It is rural surpluses that have improved significantly because they're not required to spend as much on basic requirements.
Dalveer, are regional brands doing anything different from national brands in reaching out to the rural consumer?
I think the regional brands, as always, have a very deeper penetration in terms of distribution. And I think their connect with the trade is much better. And the way they do their market strategy is by district. National brands are more scattered across most states, whereas a regional brand, their approach is I won one district and then I move to the next district and then the third district. And that really works very well in terms of the cost and the benefits that you can do. So it's very specific to an area. So that's one big difference which the regional brands have always been able to do.
Dalveer, my follow-on question then is that what can MNCs and national brands learn from regional brands, and how exactly do they learn this?
I think we need to, as I said, you take one market at a time and give them the best. So best in terms of visibility, best in terms of trade promotions, best in terms of communication, best inputs, and conquer that. Instead of being all over the country, we need to be specific to each geographies. And at times, as we know, in this country, har 100 cost pe aapka taste badal jata hai, pani badal jata hai. Can I have different variants? Because water and taste changes. So therefore, what is that mix for me? So those are things that you will have to build, and it can't be the same formula that I'm giving across the whole country. So that's another opportunity that one could look at.
Puneet, one of the other aspects of your report talks about the continuing concern about job security, especially in the 18 to 24 category. But some states are doing better than the others. What explains this difference between the states?
Overall, this is an aspect which is a matter of concern, even as rural India is a lot more secure in terms of their own economic status as such. Jobs are a concern. It is a concern given the fact that the young are manifestly talking about this, that they do not have jobs, or job security is an issue for them. So that is in itself something that needs to be taken into account, and rural jobs need to be kind of addressed. There are states that are probably a lot better as compared to the other states, and that is down to the kind of industrial infrastructure that is available there, or the kind of job creation that is occurring at a rural level. So that is really a state level performance. But overall, I think this is something that is a matter of concern for the country as a whole, and it needs to be looked at holistically from a country standpoint rather than looking at it by states as such.
Dalveer, would you like to opine on this as well? Where are these jobs going to come from if you want to mitigate this sort of job insecurity?
So one is, as he rightly said, the industrial areas are the reason for these differences between states. So the states where the concern was very high is Hindi-speaking states, Gujarat and Kerala. Whereas if you look at states like Maharashtra, AP, Telangana, Karnataka, Punjab, Haryana, HP are well above the national average. And I think the new jobs have to be local. It can't be moving the rural guys out of rural areas to towns. That's not going to work. And that's how we've crowded our metros. We need to create jobs which are local. So provide them inputs and give them skills where they can make the best use of the local. So therefore, all the interventions, whether it is from corporate or from government, have to be, how do I contain and keep my youth here? And we have a huge population of this youth which is unemployed, but they're educated. So we need to use those and use that to our strength.
That's a strong case for both manufacturing and value-added services moving to rural or perhaps semi-rural areas then.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because now the education is not a concern. So if we have BPO's equivalent in large metros, what is a parallel of that for my rural markets?
Another finding from your report, Dalveer, is the dramatic increase in the use of technology, especially e-commerce apps. And I found that a bit surprising. Now, does this mean that the so-called digital divide is finally being bridged between urban and rural India?
Yeah, I think that would be the third G that I will add to it. So first we said act of God, act of government, and the third G would be the telecom G, which is the GPRS G. Now that's really helping these guys to see, buy, feel what you and me see, buy and feel in the urban markets. That phone in their hand today helps them do that. And what are they buying on these platforms? They're buying fashion, they're buying footwear, and they're buying electrical appliances. Those are the three categories which they're buying. Now, it is all again the aspirations. How do I make my aspirations come alive? And now, with the logistics being taken care of, कि आप सामान मंगाओगे, मैं आपको बस स्टैंड पे सामान देने आ जाऊंगा. Yes, I'll not be able to give to you on your doorstep, but at the bus stand of your gaon is where the saman you could come and collect. So that's really helping it. And yes, this is going to be the biggest equalizer and at the fastest pace for rural and urban markets.
Now, Dalveer, here's a real challenge. Most marketers, like most Indians, speak 2 or maybe 3 languages. Now, we're talking about a state like UP that speaks 15 or more languages, including dialects. How on earth are marketers going to bridge this gap between what they personally know and what the market needs them to know?
I think there is a lot that you can, since you mentioned UP, there's a lot to learn from what happened in the UP election recently. So it was not Hindi ads as Puneet said, it is voice, it's vernacular, it's video. Yeah, that's what you need to get in there. So what you saw in the UP election, and we are still analyzing those details, is they divided the whole place into 5 main areas. So there is Western UP, there's Eastern UP, and then Central UP was in 2 parts. There is the Bundelkhand part and the upper part, which is the Central UP. And similarly, they used different languages, or which are the SCR based languages. So there is Bundelkhandi that you used. So and then in the Western UP, you use the Khadi Boli, right? And similarly, if in the Purvanchal, they used the dialect. So that's the way you will have to, today most marketers, or rather every marketer just uses Hindi to be the language to, so yes, that message reaches. So please understand, there's a difference between reach and reaction, right? It reaches, but does it really touch them? And when it touches is when you react and you take action. So if you just want the message to reach, yes, continue doing with Hindi. But if you really want to win these markets, you have to really touch them with that message. And that's where your language specific, culture specific things will come into play. And we need to get into that game. And today we can do it. Yesterday it was difficult when I had mass media. But today with the mobile coming in there and the data coming in there, I can really serve Venkat what his dialect is. I can really serve Puneet what his dialect is. They both may be sitting in Lucknow, but I can serve them 2 different dialects.
So that's going to be a big challenge for agencies, copywriters, creative directors, visualizers to be able to write and visualize in so many different languages. Dalveer, how do you think agencies are going to be reacting to this? How are they going to prepare?
I think what they did in 90s, where Mr. Pandey came in and we saw that huge change. Yeah, if we want our messages to touch, we will have to set up an infrastructure which is not out of Delhi, Bombay. right? These writers are not sitting in Delhi, Bombay. We need to go to Lucknow, Patna, maybe Kanpur, maybe Gorakhpur, because that talent is there. And as I said, UP doesn't need to have 100 dialects. You just need to have 5 and it works. And we have a proof of the pudding is how UP elections was done, right? So therefore, can I have to begin with, even if I use within UP, just 3 dialects, if not 5. So start with that. First of all, the intent of saying, yes, I need to go beyond Hindi, both from the marketeers as well as from the agency. So first, the intent saying, yes, I need to look at Hindi belt in a different way. I need to get the dialects in there so that it touches well. That's the intent with which you will start. And then you will add these from the regional. And that's coming back to your question of saying, how do I use that educated youth sitting in the rural markets? Yeah, there are plenty of them who are good at writing and expressing. And that's the local language. That's the connect you need.
So if we have a Purvanchali or a Bundelkhandi Piyush Pandey or Prasoon Joshi watching this show, please get in touch. There seems to be a glorious future for you in the business.
Yes, happy to be partnering that.
Puneet, the one thing that's pretty surprising in your report is the resurgence of spending on vanity and indulgence. So let me contextualize that. On one hand, we have food and job insecurity. On the other hand, rural India is spending money on indulgence and vanity. How do you explain this seeming contradiction?
So actually, Suresh, indulgence and vanity categories went through a significant decline as consumers in rural India looked to rebalance their budget post the pandemic as such. And it was only in the December wave that we started seeing that these categories were walking back into the spend basket as such of rural India, which is an indication of the fact that rural India by December was feeling a lot more confident. And in my view, they did not change their old habits, and that the focus on hygiene and health categories that has remained. They have added back some of the vanity and indulgence categories to the spend basket, things that they were otherwise economizing on. So that is a bit of a change that has occurred. It's not that they have kind of reduced health and hygiene categories. It's just that they have dialed up indulgence and vanity. And if there is a little bit of surplus around, why not indulge yourself after 2 years of being extremely parsimonious and limited in terms of one's experiences.
Back to you, Dalveer. The Indian D2C market, especially in vanity and indulgence, is clearly booming. An example is Nykaa and its potential rivals that are upcoming. So the people who run these large D2C brands, how do they pursue the rural market in vanity and indulgence? What are some of the things marketers need to learn about rural India?
I think they need to look at, and I'll give you an example of a Manihar. Manihar is somebody who goes door to door selling bangles and beauty products. He sits there, he holds the hand of the lady, he shows all that things, going door to door to help them experience it. So yes, while the phone is helping us get this to these audiences, I need to have an equivalent of a Manihar or an experience center, which is at each district where people can come, feel, see the products. And that will really help them, more and more people, to come into the category, try it, right? Second is the spurious product and products in this category. Now, the only way to fight that is to have your distribution at that level and these experience centers closer to these markets. Today, yes, on one hand, the melas, which was a challenge during the COVID times, are now coming back. Can I use that to get people to experience these categories, because they are in that mood of trying, and it is both husband and wife, the boy child as well as the girl child who come to these places. So it becomes a good platform to experience these categories.
Puneet, if there's only one thing that marketers need to do differently starting tomorrow morning after watching our show, what should that one thing be?
I think they need to start looking at the rural market, not just in terms of the aspirations that the rural market represents, but also start looking at it as one which is a continuum from urban India, not something that is discrete. It is a continuum where the aspirations have homogenized significantly. They are now increasingly accessible on their mobile phones digitally. They are consuming a lot of information. They are being influenced online. That is something that is very important. And then taking on from those points of connection that have been created via digital, taking it on to actual on-the-ground implementation as such to create stronger brands. I think that is something that the marketers need to look at. Digital plus on-the-ground activation are two important elements of the jigsaw that will allow brands to be successful in rural India in times.
All right, Dalveer, your final question. Where does one buy such flamboyant shirts? I also want one.
You have to go to the melas, man. That is where you will get these colors, right? You have to be in the rural market to get the best colors. And that's what India has.
All right, Dalveer Singh and Puneet Avasthi, thank you very much for speaking to us on Melt.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be keeping close tabs on that space. With that, it's a wrap on this episode. You can follow Melt on social media. The handle is Ready to Melt, or simply log on to readytomelt.com. And if you'd like to follow me, it's @Suvenk on Twitter. Till next week then, goodbye and thanks for watching.